Presente.
28. Lulu Shakur.
Presente.
26. Jamil Alameen.
Presente.
I'm moving.
Kamal Siddiqui.
Presente.
10 years, and I am a family and member of them. And then Lynne Stewart.
Presente.
4 years. So, and he was sodomically, and I am also a family member of hers. And there should be no domestic terms called sodomy. So we say that this struggle to free U.S. held political prisoners and prisoners of war has gone on for 40 years. And it's time that we build a movement. We want to build a movement that does what Lynne says, that doesn't have sectarianism. Have this camp over this here and this camp over that camp. We have one oppressor, as Malcolm said. One oppressor, a common oppressor that oppresses all of us to varying degrees, and we have to fight against that, or else we'll continue to do what Bob Marley says. How long will we allow them to murder our leaders? And when they have all of these people in prison for something like 1,000 years collectively, they came after these people with the war on black liberation, Puerto Rican independence, and white anti-imperialism, imperialist freedom fighters. They came after Lynne Stewart, and they're coming after us. So we have to be wiser and understand that we are nothing by ourselves. We don't have the luxury of working in isolation. We have to work together, or else we will not only not free Lynne Stewart, we will have more people like Lynne Stewart. We will have the Albert Noah Washingtons, the Bashir Hamids. We will have Teddy Jaheed. We will have Merle Africa. We will have more people that are murdered by state-sanctioned murder and state-sanctioned terrorism. This is what terrorism looks like. Locking up people for 4 decades. This is what terrorism looks like. Telling people that they cannot fight for freedom, that you cannot fight against injustice. That is what terrorism looks like. What looks like terrorism to me is telling a 73-year-old woman that she cannot come home and live with her family while her body is being ravaged by cancer. That is what terrorism looks like. What looks like terrorism is denial of his lung capacity. That is terrorism. What is terrorism is stop and frisk. What is terrorism is the war on drugs, the war on so-called terrorism and Muslims, the war on poor people right here in this city. That, to me, looks like terrorism. These are our freedom fighters, and I encourage you to please work together for us to build a movement that is not just about freeing our political prisoners, but freeing ourselves, because it is all of us or none of us. Thank you. And these are my t-shirts, so if you're interested in the t-shirt, you can see them. These are the Sekou Odinga Defense Committee t-shirts.
Okay, the next speaker is a person from an organization that has long struggled for political prisons and social justice. Deborah Sweet.
Woo!
The world cannot wait.
The world cannot wait.
And the world will not
We
wait.
can't wait. You know, talking about being together, a lot of us were together yesterday marching for freedom for Bradley Manning.
Right on.
And a bunch of us were down in Washington last week for freedom for the Guantanamo prisoners. And many of us have been at many protests against people imprisoned all over by this government. And what am I thinking at this moment? If Lynne were out, she would be with us.
Right on.
She was at everything. Whether she was physically there, or she was writing, or she was supporting, or she was helping to think, how are we going to get these people out? And how are we going to support them? Lynne has always been there, at least since I've been politically active in New York City. And she had a long start on me,
Right on.
politically speaking. I don't know what we should do for Lynne. We felt so badly in Washington last week. We were all talking about it. What is the way to get this frigging government to back down and let Lynne out? To have some compassion, which we know they do not have for the people. What is the way to open this up? We talked about who are the people in power that would listen. We talked about getting a lot of bodies out somewhere. We talked about more petitions. You know, we all talked about this, the biggest signs possible, and reaching the people who don't know what we're talking about. But I feel really up against it here. You look at the history of what this government has done, not just to the overtly political prisoners, but to all the people struggling who are imprisoned en masse. And you know this is a hateful, brutal, dictating government. And you know that, and you still look and you say that what they did to Lynne is just pure meanness. It's just pure meanness. How could a system do this to a woman, to a person, to a family, to another human being? I feel so strongly that we have to keep finding the ways to get the message out. And we have to find our colleagues, our comrades, our cohorts who don't know about this story, and we have to mobilize them, just like we're doing for the Guantanamo prisoners, for Bradley Manning. People don't know the story, and if they do know the story and they're okay with what's going on, well then I feel sorry for them. It's not acceptable to know what's going on and to close your eyes. It absolutely has to be a situation where we reach thousands and hundreds of thousands and tell them about the story of this government charging a lawyer who fought for her clients with something called material support for terrorism, of which any of us at any moment right now, speaking the truth, could be rounded up for. I was interviewing someone at Stony Brook College this morning, and we talked about Lynne Stewart. And he said, what does that charge material support for terrorism even mean? It means that if you criticize the government in the vague way that these rules and statute is written, you too could be swept up. And I'm not saying that because I only care if each one of us is affected. This is affecting humanity and millions of people's future. If frontline fighters like Lynne, Mumia, Bradley Manning, all these people are allowed to be locked up for life.
Free the Holiday in 5. Free the Holiday in 5.
We need to free all humanity and all political prisoners. And we need to talk to each other and continue to strategize, because there has to be a way to break through on this case. There has to be a way that we bring more and more people to confront it and to get active. And to bring it out to all the other people struggling on these other cases. We will take it down Monday to Bradley Manning's trial when his defense finally starts. We'll take it out protesting drones. We'll take it on the streets talking about mass incarceration and stop and frisk. Because everybody who knows something about prison in this country, which is tens of millions of people, knows the story of Lynne Stewart. They just haven't heard it yet. Love you all. Love to Lynne. Carry on.
Understand something, that the last two speakers you heard are a reflection of what Lynne Stewart told us while she was out here. She says it's not about me. It's about all political prisoners. Right. And the names on that shirt that was read by DeQueen, 15 of them, Lynne Stewart had something to do with. Before they were arrested, after they were arrested, and during their trial. Because she supported justice and just acts. And we must work as one organization. We must come together as separate fingers and be a fist that the government fears. And I'm going to be in Washington the 12th of July in Lafayette Park, where people gathered as a vigil to save Troy Davis. And the 16th, I'm going to be in front of the White House, and I want as many people as you can get this message to be there with me, and I'm going to be there until Lynne Stewart is free. We are going to form a fist with more people in front of the White House than they have ever seen. A contingent, a group that the government cannot ignore. That's how we can begin to bring our political prisoners and all prisoners and create a more just society. We have to vote with our feet and with our presence to be places, to support those people who supported us. And if there's one message that we have to carry from here, that is the message. Support those who support you, not those who say they're going to support you, but those who really support you. And I tell you, it's not the people in power today. Not in Washington and not in New York. We managed to vote for the wrong people perfectly and consistently. We're going to have to change that. Not that voting is going to change anything, but what's going to change it is our expression that we know who is on our side and who is not on our side. Now, I've been asked to introduce a great person who has supported our movement over the years. Another fine and great actress who has words for us, Viney Burroughs, is going to tell us about how those of our age feel about Lynne Stewart and political prisoners.
I am here as you are here, and we are representing all political prisoners, recognizing that in this country we are all a political prisoner. Some are locked up behind bars, walls, but in a country where people, children, men and women, the richest country in the world, are homeless, go to bed hungry, while our monies are used to fight wars against people like us, men and women and children like us, people who are trying to live their lives in dignity, with housing, with food, with education. So while we are here, and we are not summertime soldiers, those of us that are here, but we have a job to tell others who are not here that we must let them understand how perilous and dangerous is our situation. As we are marching very slowly down a road towards fascism, where dissent will not be allowed, where the ability of people to assemble and protest will not be allowed. We are marching down that step. It happened in Germany, it happened in Italy, it happened in other places, and it looks as if it is happening here. Our dear sister, our beloved sister, Lynne Stewart, fought all of her life for justice for those who were denied justice. And she fought fearlessly. She did not hold back. She did not say, this is not my cause. The people's cause was always Lynne's cause. And And that is one of the reasons we are here today, to say she must be given compassionate release. I remember when she was sentenced not far from here to a term of 10 years, and I wrote a blog that said she was given a death sentence. We must not allow that to happen. Someone, the previous speaker, talked about what we could do, what must be done. It is easy to feel defeated. Their forces are many, but we are more. Yeah. If only we would realize it. If only we would join our forces together and fight those who fight the will of the people. Yeah. I don't have much more to say, except that when we leave this place, and I think we're going to march further, but when we leave today, what are we going to do tonight? Who are we going to talk to? Who are we going to call? How are we going to become actively engaged in a struggle which ultimately should free Lynne Stewart? Dear sisters and brothers, we are all united under a heaven and a universe that holds us all, and we must fight that all of us, wherever we are, will have a life of dignity, with food to eat, a job gainfully employed, with good wages and benefits, and shelter, and an education. I embrace you as we embrace each other, and we say, free all political prisoners. Free Lynne Stewart. Free Lynne Stewart. Now.
So Ralph asked me to introduce the next speaker, and what I want to say is we ask the question, where is everyone? Where are the people who are the former political prisoners and prisoners of war? Where are the lawyers? Where are the educators? Where are the mothers and the fathers and the sisters and the brothers of all those people? Because we know, as it's been said, there are millions of people who have experienced the injustice of this country. So I want to introduce a sister who is a lawyer, who has always been on the side of U.S. held political prisoners and prisoners of war, who is not afraid to speak up and is not afraid to defend, because this is about scaring people into silence, right? The Bar Association should be here. The National Lawyers Guild should be here. Every lawyer who is concerned about defending the rights of the people needs to be here, because that's what Lynne did, right? So I want to bring up sister, lawyer, warrior woman, Joan Gibb.
Thank you. Sisters and brothers, first of all, I want to begin by thanking each and every one of you for coming out here today. Earlier today I posted posts on Facebook, and I said, sunshine or rain, we need to be out here to free Lynne Stewart. Right, rain or shine, right? But the truth, the struggle to free Lynne is not just about, as everybody else has said, it's just not about freeing Lynne, as important as that is at this moment, but it's about freeing all political prisoners and then freeing ourselves. Because those people who are in prison, those political prisoners are people who fought, people who struggled, people who sacrificed, so that this country could be where it is today. And even as bad as it is, it wouldn't be where it is now. It could be worse, except for all the political prisoners. And particularly, I want to say a shout out to my brothers and sisters in the Black Panther Party. Because those brothers and sisters, unknowns to many people, changed the course of the struggle for racial justice in the United States. So that said, I want to say one thing in conclusion. There are those who, will sit around and talk on Facebook, engage in polemics and ideological struggle, but won't come in the street. So we need to tell them that that's not enough. All over the world, in Turkey, in Egypt, in Brazil, right here in the United States, in North Carolina, in this Bay Area where the transport workers are today on strike. People are struggling. People are struggling in the streets. And that's what we need to do. So all I want to say now is free all political prisoners, free Lynne Stewart, and free yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say that the next time you have police confrontation, you might not be able to call a lawyer.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they want.
Yeah, that's right. Because if you don't go see about Lynne, that's right. I guarantee you, lawyers are not going to touch you with a 10-foot pole.
Thank you. I lost a brother here from San Francisco, from the international stevedores or workers. Where has he disappeared to? Came all the way from San Francisco to be here today to talk about Lynne Stewart, and I have lost him. And so therefore, we'll have somebody who traveled from 24th Street, the International Action Center. Steve, would you give us a few words from the workers' world?
My name is Steve Millage from Workers' World Party, and there's a lot of lawyers that need to be jailed. Lynne Stewart is not one of them. Richard Nixon should have been sent to Vietnam to face Nuremberg justice.
Right on.
William Rehnquist dislocated the shoulder of a black woman trying to vote in 1964 as a Goldwater precinct captain. And let's not forget there was another Goldwater supporter in that election by the name of Hillary Rodham. If William Rehnquist had done that a year later, it would have been a violation of the Voting Rights Act. Instead, he became the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. The 5 justices last week that voted to junk the Voting Rights Act should be jailed by the people, but not Lynne Stewart, who fought for the people. There's a war against progressive lawyers in this country. For more than 20 years, attorney at war, Alton Maddox, has been denied the right to defend the oppressed because he defended Tawana Brawley, a victim of a gang rape. And Tawana Brawley's wages are now sequestered by this rapist. That's how outrageous the justice system is. You have a district attorney who's the son of a war criminal, Cyrus Vance Jr., whose father bombed Vietnam with napalm and phosphorus. He let a rapist go, even though they had physical evidence to convict him. Who's the IMF head? You're right. We have to defend Lynne Stewart and all fighters for the people. The fact that they will not even release a 73-year-old grandmother who has a severe case of cancer shows how fragile their system is, that they're so frightened. It's like when they had to send 1/5 of the U.S. Army to hang John Brown. Free Lynne Stewart. Free ourselves.
Right on. And this is the spirit we must begin to inject into our communities. This is what we need people to feel, and we need people to say. Don't be afraid of speaking. And if I can introduce one of the people who was very much involved in human rights in America, in education, who came down an elected official on the Board of Education from Rochester, New York. Mary Adams wanted to be here today to support Lynne Stewart, to tell us of the history of those people who fought for our community, who fought for education. Mary, would you come up and give us a few words and your thoughts about the struggle of Lynne Stewart for liberation? Ricardo, would you come with her?
This is totally unexpected. I'm busy passing out ribbons. The ribbons are to express the breast cancer symbolism of, what we're going through with Lynne. So, what can I say? What can I say? There's no words. there's no words to express the tragedy of what's going on, you know, in this situation in the world. But we will never give up. We won't give up.
No, we won't. Okay, thank you, Mary and Ricardo.
And I just want to say, we talk about a soldier here. This is what we talking about, a soldier. Somebody who's been defending people like me. So it's wrong to defend, like to stand up for somebody like me? No, it is not. And we don't stand a chance, man. If we start laying down, when people go down, we got to let the next person know that it's okay to stand up for people like me. If we're not representing, they're gonna say, no, we're gonna be in the same situation, and we ain't gonna, I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't gonna pull no punches. I'm totally disappointed at this crowd. The size of this crowd, it should be packed. The helicopters should be flying all over here, so many people, because this is about most of the people. This ain't about just a chosen few. This is where I come from. We need 5 or 6 Lynne Stewarts.
All right.
And all other political prisoners too. Let it be known. Don't give up on Lynne, man. That's all I ask. Don't give up on Lynne, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Ricardo and Mary, who showed us what to do. Came 250 miles to be a part of this demonstration. So, like we started, we need people to vote with their feet. Now we have another speaker from the International Action Center. If you would come forward and give us a few words. And we're talking about doing more than giving us a few words. I'm talking about people who, in the middle of the night, if you call International Action Center, you have someone there making signs, making these things, these demonstrations for all actions of social justice. Could we hear it?
Charity always to be glad. I'm glad to be here, not for the reason we need to be here, but to see people out here who support Lynne Stewart. This is such a travesty of justice. Lynne Stewart not only has stood up against the most horrific harassment and terrible resentencing of 10 years, but Lynne Stewart has stood up for those who are in jail where she is, which she's fighting continuously since she's there for as long as she was able to do so. And she has fought for poor and working people who've been arrested time after time after time. She's taken on the tough struggles. She stood up against all forms of repression. She came out in support of gay and lesbian rights before it was popular to do so. She came out in solidarity with the Black Panther Party. She came out in solidarity with many other Black activists, Leo Jamal, and a number of the other people who have been mentioned here who are incarcerated from 20 to 40 to 4 years and who have spent the majority of their life in prison. Lynne Stewart has not only been a people's lawyer, but a defender of Black and Asian and Latin and Muslim people. She's a defender for justice for everybody. We have to continue the fight for Lynne Stewart. We have to continue the petitioning and the demonstrations. That means being in Washington, being wherever we're calling the demonstrations in larger and larger numbers, and signing on to the petitions and the phone calls. Because this puts pressure on, we have to continue this pressure so that Lynne Stewart can get her compassionate release, which is far out of overdue, far overdue. She should be released after 2 years the original sentence and got resentenced to 10 years. Lynne Stewart has been a fighter for the people. She continues to be that, and she doesn't only fight for herself, but she fights for all people incarcerated. She fights for people of color. She fights for people against all forms of injustice. Free Lynne Stewart!
Free Lynne Stewart! Free her now!
Free her now!
We'll hear now from another perspective of the work of Lynne Stewart, the people she supports. Steve from Stolen Lives will tell us about the struggle that he is much involved in.
Thank you, Ralph. I'll be very short. Good. Good, that reminds me. All right, on behalf of, one, the Stop Mass Incarceration Network, and the Stone Lives Project of the October 22nd Coalition to Stop Police Brutality, Repression, and the Criminalization of a Generation. Lynne Stewart, let me backtrack. Yeah, Lynne Stewart, but let me also say, mass incarceration plus silence equals genocide. And Lynne Stewart has been somebody who's been on the front line taking on this question from since I knew her. And I know her directly in terms of work with her around the question of protecting and defending parent activists against police brutality, particularly the case of Juanita Young. After Juanita's son, Malcolm Ferguson, was killed by the police, Juanita was one of many parents who stood up, who came forward, transformed into not only an activist for justice for her son, but she transformed to an activist against all oppression and for social justice. And she paid a price for it when the police and the Bronx DA came at her, evicted her illegally. But also in terms of what Lynne Stewart represents, I think this is why we're here today. I think Lynne Stewart is a brave fighter for the people. And because of that, a whole host of us from all different political perspectives need to step out and show our solidarity with her and call for compassionate release for Lynne Stewart. Lynne Stewart, we also remember, defended people who were not only in need of legal defense, but she aggressively stood with her clients. Do we remember Larry Davis?
Yeah.
The dude who eluded. Okay. Another Lynne Stewart. I just want to end there by saying we need to link up the question of justice for Lynne Stewart as we go into this next couple of weeks. We're looking at a showdown, nationally speaking, okay? What do I mean by that? Justice for Trayvon Martin, okay? The system's throwing down. They're drawing the line in the sand. July 8th, California prisoners, especially in the shoes, are going on hunger strike. And that hunger strike is already spreading to other parts of the country, okay? So we can expect the powers that be will respond in a way that'll be not nice. And we need to be prepared. So when we fight for justice and freedom for Lynne Stewart, we must integrate that in the whole package, because if we understand that all these questions are interconnected and linked, we need to also find the ways where we can bring this out to the masses of people, because at the same time, the masses of people are under siege, and we need to show the way for them to step out and to raise the level of mass resistance that's necessary right now. Thank you very much, Ralph.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And how do we get to the people? How do we tell the people what's happening? We need the services of a radio station that represents us. Now, I'm not going to say words of criticism about our local radio station that has been representing us and bringing us the story. So I'll ask William Herbrowner to come out, who was on WBAI late at night, giving us great stories in the history of music and jazz, to say a few words about the communication instrument called WBAI.
Good afternoon. Just while I was on the air for a couple of years, while Lynne was still out with us, she was elected to the WBAI local station board. Before she could serve, and she got more votes than anybody had ever gotten. Before she could serve, she ended up in that building down there that we're going to visit, the MCC. WBAI is in trouble now. Lynne always loved BAI. We always loved her. And I see some of you here that have been active at times in BAI. Some of you are just listeners. And BAI is in big trouble. I feel sorry for it. I'm a member of the Justice and Unity campaign. We've been fighting since they went to this elect the local station board business. It's been going downhill. We'll keep fighting, and we'll keep fighting for Lynne. And who knows, maybe I'll get back on the air and I'll have Lynne on. Free Lynne Stewart.
Free Lynne Stewart. And along with this radio program, many years ago, when people had forgotten about Lynne, I had the opportunity to go on one of the stations every week to open up the discussion of world politics, to begin with Lynne Stewart. That was on the program of Taking Aim, Ralph and Maya Schoen and Schoenman. And one of their aides, supporters, and comrades who did a lot of the work that enabled us to go forward and to continue the program of bringing news of Lynne Stewart after she was gone. All right, let's hear it.
All right. Thank you. Hi, I'm Russell Dale. I'm also with Justice and Unity and the Take Back WBAI campaign, and I'm glad everybody, I'm really pleased that so many people came out to speak up for Lynne. She doesn't belong in prison in the first place, as everybody knows, and we really need to demand that she gets compassionate release. It's a real shame and disgrace on the government in this country, especially one that came to power under the idea that there was going to be serious and significant change. Of course there wasn't, and the whole of the Obama administration, I think, has shown itself to be quite a sham with what it's doing with Lynne, and the way it is the one that insisted on her resentencing, which got her 10 years in prison. So anyway, thank you all for coming out, and I do hope everybody will stand up for WBAI. Like William said, tomorrow there's a meeting at 6 or 7 o'clock. What time is the meeting tomorrow, William? William, what time is the meeting tomorrow?
6 to 9, I think.
6 to 9 tomorrow night, St. Mary's Church on 126th Street up in Harlem.
1 through 6.
Please support WBAI and free Lynne Stewart.
Now, I feel like a male chauvinist, and you know I hesitated when I said Ralph and Maya Schoen and Schoenman, and I must say Russell and Lynne Stewart said to me, stop talking about Russell Dale without talking about Sheila Hamanaka, who's done much of the work. And I see Russell Dale has his back, and I hope Sheila is getting my voice. No, neither of them heard me. But let it be understood that I speak of the women warriors as well as the men. And now I see standing next to somebody who's been a Lynne Stewart supporter in the streets at every demonstration, talking about supporting Lynne Stewart with the black flag, and he will tell Richie to come and tell us what the anarchists stand for and his support of Lynne.
This is the banner that we did at Theater 80 for Lynne. As you can see, it states the obvious. What isn't obvious is, over the years, I've seen a lot of people say they believe in a revolution. Well, Lynne actually believed in a revolution. That's why she's in jail. She wasn't one of these sellout lawyers that says, I'm really on your side, when she's really on the prosecution side. She doesn't go back and forth from one table to the other. That's why Ashcroft went on David Letterman and went after her by name personally. I never heard of an attorney general going on a TV show and naming a defendant they're going after. And not only did David Letterman kiss his ass, he didn't say, well, wait a minute, what is Lynne's side? Did he invite Lynne's family, Ralph, on the show to hear her side? No. And I suggested that we go to David Letterman and say, you're a war criminal. To have that asshole on your show and not have the other side on. What kind of one-sided jerk are you? What if it was your family and they wanted some show and they went after you? I'm sure you want your side. And here's the bottom line. Lynne knew what this stood for. And where I got this is a story. I got this out of the cemetery where my Vietnam veteran George Deegan was buried. I took it, I said, that don't belong there. And I learned from him, you gotta speak the truth. I remember when I was over there at Foley Square when she got the 10 years. I went to the guards and I said, how can you go home tonight after what happened to this lady? I cursed them out and said, are you in the Klan? Are you an asshole? What is wrong with you that you can get a paycheck and do this for a living? And I said to him, one day there is going to be a revolution. We're going to put you in jail.
Right on.
It ain't going to be the type of jail you're going to like. Because anarchists are going to run it. It's not going to be a jail. We're just going to make sure you pay back the bullshit that you're doing. And the worst thing is the silence of these unions, of these teachers, these other lawyers, these so-called professionals, the working class, that have not done one fucking thing for Lynne. They all just endorsed the Democrats, the unions. They all just endorsed Obama when he ran for office. The biggest union in this country endorsed Obama. Why is Lynne still in jail? Because of Obama. There's no difference between the two parties. So until we get 1 million people in the street and confront the unions that aren't doing shit, and these professional unions that aren't doing shit, every court officer in there is laughing. The lawyers that fucking walk in there, they're just railroading people day and night. They aren't doing nothing for Lynne. Name me one lawyer association that said, pull the lawyers, they're not doing anything for the courts unless Lynne is released. Not one. Not any chapter in any state. But in Egypt yesterday, there were millions of people in the streets. In those two countries, it was started by two real environmentalists. Unlike the white environmentalists we have here that are run and funded by the oil companies and the timber companies. Lynne defended real environmentalists. She defended real revolutionaries. And she knew if you were not a revolutionary, you couldn't bullshit her. She could, like someone said, she had a bullshit detector on. We got too many people bullshitting, saying they're revolutionaries. If you are, get in the fucking street, stop voting for Democrats, get the preachers to get off their ass and be preachers, and stop being goddamn pimps, and stop telling people to vote for Democrats. Too many leftists sit there when it comes to, but the Republicans are going to get in office, we better vote for Democrats. If you do that, you are a moron, and you are treasonous. Don't say you love Lynne and then vote for Democrats. Remember, the revolution is not going to be televised, and it's not going to go through the Democratic Party. Free Lynne.
Hey, thank you, Richard. I think someone asked me, when are we going to march? And I said, well, this is the kickoff. This is the beginning. This is the statement to everyone out there. The struggle continues. Yes. I want people to continue making the phone calls because we shut down some of those phone systems in Washington. When you say Lynne Stewart, it goes off. Let's keep shutting them down. Let's continue signing the petition. And if there is no one else, anyone I haven't missed, who traveled here to speak now, here forever. Hold your peace.
Ralph, say a few words.
Ralph, can I say a word?
Okay. Okay, we have 2 more people to speak. Women first to talk, and then we will call this to a close. Remember, we're coming back here July 9th, one more time, and this is another kickoff. I will be in Washington, D.C. from the 13th until Lynne comes home at Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House. Feel free to join me, rain or shine, any hour of the day, because they closed the park except for those, I guess, having a vigil against nuclear bombs. They were scared, they were grandfather claused in from 1981. So they can't put them out of the park. And so if you feel strong enough, we can stay under their tent. We can take sleeping bags and be with their tent and keep our signs so we can start bright and early in the morning. Washington, D.C., 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue from the 13th until Lynne comes home. Thank you.
I'm Betty Maloney from Radical Women, and I stand in solidarity with Lynne and with all of us here. Our organization was so impressed with Lynne when she came to our national conference,
And the thing that has always impressed us about Lynne, what everybody said here today, is that she is always there for the underdog. She is always there fighting. Even when the situation was terrible for her, she went out on the street and she fought for other people. And I think that's a good message that Lynne's life has taught us, that we have to be there for each other and we have to unite as a group to continue to fight. So onward to free Lynne Stewart. Thank you.
I just want to say very quickly, all of you that belong to trade unions, talk to your brothers and sisters in the union. It's about time that if they're not going to release Lynne, and they're not going to release Mumia, and they sure as hell not going to release any of our political prisoners without a fight. And everybody that remembers who's been involved in the struggle to free Mumia is that it was the masses of the people all over the world who got active around Mumia because he was on death row. And he came within 10 days of being executed. And Judge Sabo realized he didn't do something quick and stop the execution. Please grant him a release from, let's grant him time that not be. Get off death row. Yeah, and if he didn't stop the execution, at least give him a few days release, that all hell will break loose all over the world. If they don't really, if Lynne Stewart dies in prison, all hell should break loose in this damn city. The working class has to be organized. We have to raise the consciousness of the masses. And so, go back and talk to brothers and sisters in the unions, in the schools and wherever. If this was a nice day, it was like, if this was a bright, warm, and sunny day, I know hundreds more would be here. So, again, free Lynne Stewart, free Mumia, free all political prisoners, free Lynne Peltier, free them all. In closing, in line with the last speech, what are we going to do? Well, Dolores Cox has just heard from Sarah Flounders, and Sarah Flounders wants to know, what are we going to do? So Dolores is going to come forward and ask those to talk about their commitment to July 9th, so we know how many organizations are going to be here. Now,
July 9th date has been generated by the International Action Center. So we want to take a
louder,
vote
please,
today.
from old folks.
What?
Louder.
The July 9th date has been generated by the International Action Center. Before we actually continue with the planning for that day, if other organizations are willing to join us in the July 9th day. That's next week now. So I just want to take a poll, show of hands, to see if we can get back here together on July 9th. If it's a conflict with other events that other groups are planning, let me know about that as well. But as it stands now, that's the date that we've set, July 9th, for the next convening here. So I have a show of hands of people. We want a consensus to see how people feel about coming back on July 9th.
We're going to do the same thing. We're not going to march today. It looks like inclement weather, and we've been here long enough. But we just want to let people begin to understand that we're going to fight this fight until Lynne comes home. The next date of being here is July 9th, where we will have a march over to the courthouse and back. And so Dolores is getting a show of hands, and maybe she'd like to write down the names of organizations.
Right, exactly. So who again is speaking for their organization will be willing to come back here again on July 9th? So we can do it again from 4 to 7 p.m. What day is tonight?
I don't know. It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday.
And so, while Dolores is getting names of those organizations you're committed to, I am so pleased to see a representative of Uhuru from Newark. Lisa Davis. Okay, could you yell out the names of the organizations that are going to participate July 9th? And Dolores is writing them down. Let's hear it.
Freedom Socialist Party.
Radical Women.
And Radical Women. Raging Granny.
How are you? Freedom All. Have you been here for a while, Tommy? Will you share? Will you share or let me know when you put it up on YouTube?
Okay. We are here, and we know that although we stand here individually, we know that each and every one of us represent 100 more even, and even more who don't even know that they are yet concerned. We can't give up no matter what. And they cannot kill our movement, no matter how many of us might not make it all the way as far as we would like to. So I'm just here to show my support, that's all. And to show love to Lynne.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. And it's one of the things that Lynne Stewart says is she looks out to the audience. Everyone in the audience could come to the front and make a speech based on their knowledge and their hard work over the years. And I see more people coming, and we could be here till midnight talking about the struggle and our part in the struggle. But I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to call it to a close and say, use this energy and this remaining time to go home and make 1 or 2 phone calls to your friends to come back here July 9th. Make 1 or 2 phone calls to your friends to get them to call the Bureau of Prisons. No, this struggle isn't over yet. We're not even slowing down yet. And for the many of the lawyers said to Lynne Stewart, you should keep your mouth shut. You should stop sticking your finger in the eye of the government. And Lynne Stewart says, when I went to school, I learned the words of John Paul Jones. We have not yet begun to fight. Patrick Henry, I regret that I have no, give me liberty or give me death. Nathan Hale, I regret that I have but one life to give for my government. And so all of those words inspire Lynne Stewart to action. And who was it that said, getting an idea is like sitting on a pin. It makes you do something. Let us do something. Let us sit on the pin. Let us be inspired by the people who came here today and spoke today. And let's be back the 9th in full force. And remember, from the 13th on, in front of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, you have a chance to begin building that fire to hold Mr. Obama's feet to, because I will be there until Lynne Stewart comes home. Thank you for coming out
Lynne Stewart's cancer continues to spread in her lungs. She's not improving. The warden recommended to the Justice Department she be released. Cancer has metastasized, spreading to her lymph nodes. Kathleen Kenney, on the grounds her health is improving. What a disgrace.